So one of the risks of watching YouTube videos is it's sanitized and whitewashed and they don't keep it real. Well, I'm going to keep it real. I want you to learn from my mistakes. I made a big one. I bought and installed a specialty power windows windshield wiper kit for my 56 Bel Air. It was a custom kit. I had to route all kinds of controls for it. And then when I went to install my vintage air unit, the two were in conflict. So I had to rip this one out. I ended up going with the Raingear unit, which is what I should have done to begin with, but that's what this episode is going to be. We're going to unbox it. I'll show you what comes in the box. I'll show you everything that goes into putting it in, because it's now in, it's under the dash. So if you're interested in seeing this, stay tuned. All right, so as I'm in Christine putting in this vintage air system, thought I was getting ready to button up everything underneath the dash, start installing the vents, and I've discovered a problem that I've got to undo, and it's a pretty big one. I bought a windshield wiper system, and I tried to save a few dollars and didn't go with the Raingear version. I went with a different version that I got, and it was customizable, and I thought, okay, this ought to work, and it's supposedly designed for the 56 Bel Air, but I put it in and it took a lot of work. I got a whole episode on that, but now I'm gonna have to rip it all out because it's in the way of the switching mechanism for the vintage air unit. So what I'm talking about is in here, the vintage air unit switch goes right here, and you'll see right here is my windshield wiper motor, which is hidden underneath the dash. It's made underneath the firewall, or in front of the firewall, underneath the hood. It made it look clean. But then this vintage air switching system that's on the back of this, I took one of these off to get it in. And when I go to put it in, this is banging into that motor. So I'm not even going to show you, but I mean, when I slip this in here, it doesn't have enough room to go in the back to clear that motor. So my next job, before I finish the vintage air system, I'm going to have to remove all that and put in a different system. So let's get into that. So this is the Raingear wiper system from Raingear Wipers, and this is specifically for the 55 and 56 Chevy. And this kit, there's only a couple of one option that you can change, and that is the kind of a switch you get with it. Whether or not you get it with a 2-speed switch, you get it with the delay switch. And I believe I ordered this with the delay. Yeah, the intermittent delay switch. So you can see it, there it is. You either have the 55, 56 system or the 57 system. And then the only other option is whether it's 2-speed switch or intermittent delay switch. Otherwise, all this hardware is the same. So I'm gonna have to pull my old system out and put this system in. But this Raingear system specifically says it will clear the vintage air system. And though I wish I would have started with this system to begin with, I didn't. So live and learn. That old system's going to have to come completely out, and it's going to be useless since it's been customized and modified and whatever. There's no way I'm going to return it, so that's a waste. So this is probably the most expensive wiper system on any 56 Bel Air there is out there, but we'll live and learn. Here we go. So I'm going to have to pull this one out, and I don't think it's going to be easy because I have the steering column I think has to come out. My gauges have to come out. I've got a lot of undoing to do, but I'm going to get it out, and then we'll put this one in and then continue with our vintage air system. So here we go. So check this out. My son got me this for Christmas. This is a Harbor Freight LED lamp. Holy cow, this thing is like a torch. I love it. It's got a little magnet thing here, and it's got a pivoting head, and I don't want to point it to myself because you see it's bright as welding flash. But there you can see now, you can see the windshield wiper system I've got to pull out. So I've got to pull all of this out, and it's all above my steering column. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it all out without taking the steering column out, but we're going to try to take this apart because since I don't have to salvage anything, I can be pretty brutal with how I pull it out and not surgical. So I'm going to try to get it. All right, well, it must be a lucky day for me because I was able to get it out without much trouble. Couldn't believe it. It only took me about 20 minutes maybe, and that was unbolting a couple of things, but then the rest of it, I just rough cut it out. So there it is. That's the other system that I just took out, this specialty power windows system. It was a good system, but it wasn't the best idea for this car. So there it is, and I cut it, rough cut it in one spot, 2 spots, and pull the whole thing out. And because I wasn't concerned with disassembling this thing, I was able to pull it out in chunks. Didn't have to disassemble anything with the vintage air system or my steering column. Lucky day for me. So let's get into installing this Raingear system. We're gonna open up the box. I've never dealt with this before. Pull out the instructions and see what's involved and get her done. So let's get her installed. All right, so the first thing I did, I opened the box, I dumped out the contents, and not being a typical male, I went ahead and decided, let's read the instructions. And guess what? It seems like these instructions were written for the typical male, because check this out. It says, getting started, some recommendations. Please try our way first. Note, this system is designed with built-in adjustments to fit your car. If, as you are installing it, you think you need to modify the parts supplied, except as noted, you are doing something wrong. Love it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how it says to put it in. But let's keep going. All right, we've had a few reports of interference with the original 55 GM manual radios, but have not been able to confirm this. Also had reports that autometer gauges, that doesn't deal with me. System cannot be used with Kugel or other cross-mount master cylinder, not my problem. We do not fit with hydraulic clutches, again, not my problem, I don't have that. This kit does not include the outside chrome escutcheons or trim bezels. Well, we knew that, so I got to get some new ones. Mine are pitted, but I'm going back with the old one right now. So first one is disconnect the battery. No problem. My battery is already disconnected. It says remove the glove box and the radio. So I've got my radio is in. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get past it, but we will see. But the glove box is not there. Remove the screws that secure the instrument panel, and at least pull the panel away enough to work behind the dash. So we'll have to see that too. Maybe easier to install a left-hand drive unit through the instrument panel opening than trying to reach up from below. Okay. Reach in and unclip the big wire harness. This will allow the dash panel to come away and make room for the new wiper system. So it sounds like I need to disconnect my speedometer cluster. We'll see. So, and then it says next, remove the wiper control knob and cable from the dash. That's if you've got the old system in. Mine is out. Save the knob and plastic information bezel for use with the new electrical switch supplied. And what I did is I took my knob and I molded it onto the other switch. So I'll see if I'll be able to recover that. Remove and save your wiper arms and blades. Dismantle the original wiper system. Remove the special escutcheon nuts from the pivot shafts. Remove and save the outside escutcheons. Remove the original pivot shafts. Remove the wiper motor and shifter. Remove the wiper motor and center spool from the firewall. So all that's been removed on mine. Nothing's left from Christine's original wiper system. And it goes on and on and on. So let me read over this. It's a lot of words. You don't need to hear me say it verbatim. I'll see if I can summarize it. All right, so I'm going to take the speedometer cluster, the gauge cluster out. And if you've not done this, there's a little protective or a little trim piece in the bottom. One screw down here that comes off, that pops off. Then this cover bezel snaps off. There's 2 screws up here, and there's 2 screws down here. So you take the 1, 2, 3, 4 out, and then you need to reach behind here. You need to reach way behind there. I don't think the darkness is going to show it, but back here is the speedometer cable, and you unscrew the speedometer cable and then pull it out. So let me slide that out, and then I'll show you. All right, you have to disconnect the wiring harness from the back of your speedometer cable, and also the speedometer cable, which is back here. And you can see, where's my speedometer cable? It's like in the middle of all this. It's right here. You just have to reach back and then just unscrew this, and it's threaded on right here. So my wiring harness is probably different than yours. This is all from the American Auto Wire kit that I've been installing. So I'm going to set this on the side, and now that gives me room to work back here. I got to pull out this bracket that I made for the other wiper system. And what's interesting is they're putting the wiper motor pretty close to where I had this other wiper motor. So it's just going to be a matter of location. But I got to pull that bracket out, and then there's the place where the wiper shaft goes, and then we'll see how that motor fits in here. All right, I want to show where this is supposed to go before we go too far. But this unit slips in, and it slides down over on the left side of the steering column, and then the shaft goes all the way from here to the other side. But I've got this American Auto wiring harness, and that motor is pretty close to my fuse panel, so I'm not sure if that's going to fit. You got to remove this rod that holds the steering, and it says that you won't be putting it back. So I'll have to see how much further this goes in to see if any of this clears. But this is just becoming, I don't know, this is getting interesting. All right, I've got it set in place, and it looks like it twists from where I had it. It goes to the side of the fuse panel, which is good. So it's got some clearance. Looks like it's about maybe 3/4 of an inch to the nearest point. That's nice, so good. Then on the inside, you can see where it is up here. That's the shaft that turns the wiper. It's inserted. I have it bolted temporarily on the outside of the cowl. So out here I have that, and that's so it's telling me that it's basically, you know, this is close to the alignment. Now the next thing that I need to do, so through that, you see that silver bracket in the back. That bracket needs to be bent, and it needs to be bent forward in order to go into the bolt hole where the 3/8 inch rod that was there, the 3/8 inch rod, and this kind of stiffens the steering column setup. It went down here, and this top bolted into that hole that you can see through and through there. So I need to bend that silver tab forward in order to go through that, and there'll be a bolt that'll hold that, and that's probably going to alter and shift this position a little bit more. So I need to do that. So this is not in permanently. And before I do it permanently, what I'm going to do, now that I see how this all aligns underneath the dash, now, because there's no diagram in the instructions that shows you how this aligns. So I'm going to take this out, put it on the ground, and see if I can't say, all right, now how do I go from A to B? How do I go from this point to the other point with all the transmission setup that it's got, the bars and rods? So we're going to pull this out and see about doing that. I'm going to see if I can't get this thing bent and get that fit in, but I think I'm going to have to like put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out a few times before I do that. Okay, I've got it on the floor so you can see how this setup is. And once you figure out how this driver's side, the motor, on the driver's side, the motor, the transmission system, all this bracket, how it fits in, then there's a double rod. There's two L's, and they bolt together right here. Pretty simple, and it looks like they give you some slots to adjust, and they say that it goes here on the 55 through 57, and it goes here for the 53 to 54. But this is what I'm talking about. So you can't really tell what's going on with this diagram, because they just you know, they just drew a little bit of part of this. But that's what it's going to look like. So now once this goes onto the shafts, there's a pin here, and it looks like it's got a little recess for a clip. They give you a bag of hardware. So I'm going to open up this bag of hardware and figure out what the assembly order is for this, how it goes onto that to mount the rod, and then once I do that, then I'm going to show you how that assembles. Okay, so the hardware is pretty straightforward. They give you a bushing in two pieces. So you can see it's got a little keyway to keep them rotating, so I guess it doesn't wear out on the bar. But the bar's got a key, so the key goes in. This will go in here, and then on this side there's an outer sleeve, so that outer sleeve slips over this, and then once you get that assembled, then there's a washer, a little flat washer, and then the retaining clip. So that's the way that this is going to go together. And I noticed that as I was assembling it, it was all very tight. So I had to file the inside of this a little bit. And then as I started to assemble it, I was going to show you it assembled, but it was like really fighting to go on there. So I'm going to have to tinker with these plastic pieces in order to make sure that they're able to go on without being loose. It says apply a small amount of grease on all brass pins. So we're going to have to do that. And it's the same thing on the other side. So that's how this whole thing assembles. But before we put it back in, two things. One, we need to bend this little tab. And so I need to bend this little tab this way. It says 30 degrees or so, so I need to do that. And we'll be able to bolt it in place. And they give you they give you a stud to put on it, and then instead of a bolt. So I'll use that. And then, but before we put it all in, we have to deal with the wiring harness. So this is the clip on the motor. So what I need to do is I need to get the other end of the wiring harness that came with the Raingear system. Let's see where that is. I need to get that here. I need to get this and the switch, and I'm assuming this needs to clip to the switch. So they must give you these two things separately. So I'll go ahead and I'll couple these two, and then I need to bring power to this some sort of way, possibly a ground. I don't know. We'll see. So I'll look at the wiring diagram. We'll go ahead and get this. I need to disconnect the other wiring from the system I just took out, and let's keep going. So here's what they show you about the wiring diagram. And it says blue to blue, red to red, and then you splice in 12 volts, positive 5 amp from fuse panel. So there's a wiper. There's a wiper wire that is on my American Auto wire harness, and I'll pull that to this. It says 12 volt positive here to the washer pump system if it's used. I don't have one, so it says if you don't use it to cover it, so we'll do that. We'll dead end that one. Black to ground. Delay switch must be grounded. So it doesn't say to connect these two. I guess it wants you can ground the switch and then ground the wiper motor separately. So, and then yellow to yellow, and then white to white. So we're going to go ahead and couple these 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to bring in a connection for the red that comes from the wiring harness, and then we'll dead end that one and figure out the grounds. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, the wiring harness is done. So I've got all the wires spliced. That's the blue, white, the yellow. Those are spliced, and then the red are spliced together with the lead. That's going to go to my fused power supply. And then the two blacks, the black coming from the wiper motor and the ground coming from the switch. Those two are tied together, and then I've got a lead coming out with a little eyelet that I will screw into a block that I have on a dash that I'm mounting a lot of my grounds. So this is done. I'll be able to get the switch in, be able to connect that as I'm inserting it. So I don't know what they said, that it's hard to do the wiring harness after you get it in. So I guess they mean plugging it, because that's the only thing. Once you get this in, that's the only thing that's sitting there looking at you. So making the actual electrical terminations are all on the switch side. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting this underneath the dash, and I still need to bend that one tab, so maybe that's the next thing. So the bushings were a little too small on the ID to go over that tab. So what I did is I took a piece of sandpaper, put it in my drill, and then I just spun it a little bit here and just opened up that ID a little bit, and then that made it fit a lot better. So you can see it goes on now. Before I couldn't even get it on. Now it goes on and it spins. Doesn't wobble, it's still tight. So I have a little white lithium grease. I'm going to go ahead and lube this up with a little lithium, and then go ahead and start mounting everything. All right, it's in. It's not bolted, but it's in. You can see it's sitting on the stud there, and then it's tight up against the cowl way up in the back. And it's sitting in a different position than what I had earlier. I mean, it is way away from the fuse panel. I had it like it was 3/4 of an inch. Now it's rotated. It's a good 3 inches clear. So this is the wiring harness here. So I came down underneath the bottom. I think I'm gonna resituate that and go over the top. So that's connected to the switch, and I was able to get the knob off, and that's gonna go here. So once I get this tightened up, I'll show you how it connects on the outside, and then I'll be able to put the shaft all the way over to the other side and get the other rod through the cowl, and we'll get that. So let me keep going. So the shaft coming through the cowl gets a rubber washer to seal at the cowl, and then it gets this 13/16 inch extension, and then it gets this threaded nut that goes over, and this is a 3/4 inch socket. So we'll tighten this up, and before I get it too locked down too tight, I want to make sure that the escutcheon and everything goes on, and I think it will. I've already got it inside kind of finger tight. Yeah, look, it's got a little bit of play. That looks like that's centered. So it's got a little bit of play on the inside on that stud, on that vent tab. So now there it is, and that's supposed to be the factory height. So let me see if my escutcheon fits. We'll bring it to the party, and it's kind of a little bit, needs to be adjusted up a little bit to get that in, but it'll go. It'll go. So you can see it's a little off-centered. I need to bring the center of this up a little bit, and I'm sure I can do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna take a screwdriver and shim it up and tighten it, and we'll lock that one down. On second thought, I can't shove it up anymore, and I think I saw this in a forum, that this bottoms out right there, and it's oh so close. So I know I can shave that down, but it means I got to pull the whole thing out again and then get in there with a die grinder and just clean that up a little bit and give me a little bit of room to move it up, because my escutcheon is just jammed. It's like really sticking. So let me do that. All right, it's a little bit better. So now the escutcheon, it doesn't drag. Before it was dragging on the bottom, but now it's good. So I'll be able to put the little trim ring on there, and then eventually mount the wiper. So now I got to work on the other side. So in the instructions, they show you that this other side goes like this, and then the shaft must stick upwards, and it says it oscillates between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So they say to adjust the length of the rod. So you've got this, and they give you slots in the back. So this length, you know, you can't completely tighten this until you get it in there. But maybe what I can do is, if it's hard to reach this, that what I can do is I can set the length and then pull it back out, tighten it, put it back in, and away we go. Okay, the passenger side is real easy because you just put it in its position. So again, it just comes from the back side. It's got that rubber gasket, then a 13/16 inch extension, and then this brass nut, and you just tighten it up with a 3/4 inch socket. So that one's in. Now I need to get on the inside and measure that rod length. So here it is on the inside, and you can see, you just tighten it up. It spins 360. So they want this to go between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So now my vintage air unit is in. Except for the ductwork, but that's the evaporator. I also have the defroster ducts. You can see the defroster, at least the vent itself is in, but not the duct. So I need to get back in here and route, that's the backside of my radio. So I need to get that shaft through to make sure that it clears all of this and comes to this, and then we can set the length. But yeah, we're on rails now. Well, I had to connect them without having the two pieces put together. You can see where it goes in over there. It's like over the radio. So it's going to clear the top. Now, I had to clip both of them, so I've got to find a way to reach in above this radio and get those two screws in that location right there, those two bolts. So I'm going to do that, and I guess right now, since this motor should be parked, it's either going to be at 10 o'clock or it's going to be at 2 o'clock. So I don't know. Adjusting it, who knows what it's going to come out like. So we will see. So I ended up, it was just easier to just drop the radio. It's just hanging by the ground strap. But now I've got you see I've got the two bolts in. And here we are now on this side. And it's supposed to oscillate between 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Well, this is all the way to the right, and that's all the way to the left. And by my clock, that might be it, all the way to the left. And then that way it'll go from there and then over to here. So that to me looks like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So I'm going to tighten in position right there. And now that the radio is out, I'll be able to get to these two and just do it. So it's clipped over here. It's clipped over at the motor, and it's clipped over here on the passenger side, and now above the radio is where that connection is, and we need to tighten that and be done. So there it is. I got that side in, I got this side in, the shaft is across, and the wiring is in, the switch is there. That's it. So this is actually a hiccup in the middle of my 2 vintage air installs. I got 2 videos, I've been working on that, but I'm gonna release those 2 first and then this one. So it's gonna be a little bit out of sequence. But anyway, do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying my channel, as always, I'd love a subscription. So until I see you next time, please take care of yourself. Cheers.